Welcome back to the Genus Brewing channel. Today we're here with Bellwether Brewing Company, a brewing company that takes kind of old world styles and puts a modern twist to them. Thomas, tell me a little bit about what we're going to be brewing today.
We're making today a session Braggot. The grain bill is a pale ale approach to things, using clover honey, which is really easy to get in grocery stores and all that. We're going to finish off the boil with some Comet hops up to about 10 IBUs, keeping that really nice, and then right at flame out, throwing in a gruit mixture of herbs and spices of lemongrass, basil, and birch bark.
Sounds like a great plan. After a brew today too, we're actually going to take this same recipe back to our shop where hopefully it'll be a little bit quieter, and we're going to scale this down to a batch of homebrew so that all you folks watching can brew it.
I hope you stay tuned and enjoy.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to Bellwether Brewing Company. We're here in the tap room. I am Thomas Croskrey, the co-owner and head brewer here. We run on a 40-gallon brew house doing historical and modern beers, and we are in north central Spokane, Washington. Starting off Bellwether, I really wanted to do a lot of more approachable, modern type beers with a historical frame of reference. Some of that came a little bit accidentally. What I mean is just to kind of cut out some homebrew expenses. I was using stuff that I was growing in my backyard in the garden. And some of that led me to studying about how they did things hundreds of years ago, and that got me really interested in that historical aspect of brewing. And then I wanted to bring that to a brewery. I say I kind of specialize in modernized historical beers. There's a lot of primarily gruits and braggots. Braggots being kind of the blend of mead and beer, so there's a lot of honey right along with all that malt. Gruit is any mixture of herbs and spices that are added to beer for flavor, preservation, just all that kind of stuff. So typically they don't include hops, but they can include hops. Then I also do more kind of American Northwest style beers as well. Try to reflect that a little bit in the IPAs and whatnot. So in lieu of a big boy brewing system, in a lot of ways, what I'm using right now is an upscaled homebrew system, which I like in a lot of ways, but I've had to cheat some ways around stuff. So instead of having a true way to Vorloff, that's what I'm doing with the bucket. I will recirculate. Yeah, as far as malts, what I use, I do really like sticking kind of close to home, both for the terroir angle, just getting the flavor of the territory, the flavor of the land, but as well as economic. I like seeing my dollars staying in my region, my area. But for a lot of also the styles, say the English IPA, or if I'm really trying to recreate an ancient Nordic braggot, I try to get ingredients as close to what they would have used as possible. So for those, I do import European malts and that kind of thing. But for more of the modern styles and even some of the older styles, I do really like using local stuff. Palouse Pint does a lot of the local malting, so I enjoy using a lot of their stuff. Terroir is something I'm still kind of moving a little more towards. I don't have a flagship beer necessarily that I would say this is Spokane or that kind of thing, but I'm moving towards that, getting more than just say Washington grown hops. The dandelion beer that I did recently, my 2.5-year-old daughter and I literally picked out of my backyard. So for me personally, you don't get any more local than your own backyard getting your ingredients. And I'm looking at moving more towards that on more of the beer recipes. Just tromping through the forest and grabbing some pine resin or rose hips, things like that. I do a spruce Scotch ale that I make when the local spruce tips are nice and vibrant green, still really soft. I go and pick those myself, and then add those into the beer, let it age for a while, and then it's got a September release. So that's just one example, but then when you taste that, that is what Spokane trees taste like in a beer. Might almost sound a little bit weird, but that's kind of part of the angle. That's what Terroir is. The collaboration beer we did, Peter and I sat down, just talked about what would be a summer beer that would reflect a little bit of what I'm doing, that would be I don't know, easy to drink through the summer, real approachable, all that kind of stuff. And we came up with utilizing the element of a gruit ale, so using some herbs and spices in there. Also using a good hops addition, and then making it a Braggot. Really easy to get clover honey right out of the grocery store, anywhere you get. So we use clover honey in there. A mixture of, I guess, more mainstream malt as well as some of the local malt. And then birch bark, lemongrass, and basil. All three of those herbs just mixed together, thrown right in at the end. And that is really the key to gruit, is those herbs and spices need to be mixed together and then added as a single ingredient. Technically, that's the definition of gruit. As far as the hops, it was all just a 15-minute addition, I think, to 10 IBUs. So this is fairly significant there at the end, hops addition, but nothing thrown in at the beginning, traditional bittering hops and whatnot. Honey attenuates much more thoroughly than malt does. So with that being a little bit drier, you don't need really the bittering additions. Plus, with it being a session type beer, you don't need a whole lot of bitterness on there. That's kind of the gist of it. The gruit addition by itself, we were talking about getting something light, refreshing, maybe a little bit of unusual. So what we came up with was using basil, lemongrass, and birch bark. Each one of those things really complement each other, and they're also very different. Birch bark is going to bring kind of a winter green type mintiness. Basil is going to be a minty, almost balsam type of character. And then the lemongrass, fairly obvious, but it's kind of grassy and lemon. So it's going to really brighten it up. There's no real acidic quality in it, which is where I really like using those lemon herbs, whether it's lemongrass or lemon verbena or whatever. But you get that without the acidic quality or without the bitterness from the peel. So I really like those. And anyway, putting those all together just makes this really nice, slightly minty, slightly woodsy, slightly lemony type of quality. And we put it right in at the end of boil to maintain the integrity of the aroma and the flavor and all that. Just like with hops, any herb or spice is typically going to change the longer you boil it. Right now, just doing the transfer and water, sparge, that whole process. We're mashing over in this kettle right here. These kettles are pretty nice. They've got a false bottom option. Then I just got this basically little chugger pump down here, transferring over to the exact same style kettle to do the boil. Yeah, trying to, when I approach maybe a new herb, or certainly when I was maybe getting started several years ago, experimenting with herbs and spices in beer, my initial approach was looking up how that ingredient would be made into a tea. So like with lemongrass in this beer that we're doing, I researched how much in a cup or maybe a carafe of tea would it take, or how much of that lemongrass would it take to make a cup or maybe pitcher of tea, and then that's kind of how I gauged it into adding that into beer. Then I would make the tea, sip on that, what kind of base beer would this go with? And then some of it is definitely trial and error. I've made some that were not terribly wonderful. Other times, I think if you maybe put in a lot of that thought and a little bit of the pre-experimentation, like making some teas, you'll usually land on something that's at least drinkable, if not actually pretty good the first time. The malt we used on this Braggot, we used Vienna, which I really enjoy using for maybe smash or session beers. It's got a little extra flavor on there. We also use some of the locally grown and malted white wheat and C40. C40 is a really different than maybe typical C40. It's got some great biscuity flavors on it, some really good caramel notes on there without being too sweet and cloying. So that's really nice. There's also a little bit of Gambrinus honey malt in there, just to kind of round out and bring out just a little bit more body. My whole system, in fact, I kind of feel like is a shoestringed, almost just upscaled homebrew system. It really is very similar to what I was using at home in my garage. Specifically with like the chilling, I have a counterflow chiller, and I actually wasn't happy with the efficiency I was getting on one chiller, so I had to use 2 chillers to really get that down to proper temperature, meaning also I had to use 2 pumps and all that stuff. So when you see the whole system all put together, it looks a bit jimmy-rigged and shoestringed. Definitely gets the job done. We have put in order for our new system, so I'm really excited to use a real big boy brew house, but in the meantime, this is doing its job. We did just actually order a 10-barrel brew house, so that is on one hand really intimidating, one hand really exciting. We have a lot of folks out of California, Oregon, of course throughout the whole state of Washington and other places even closer to the East Coast that have been interested in trying to get bottled beers of our Braggots and gruits. And so we hoping to open the door on that. As far as anything else, we're in conversation, but right now a lot of our time is spent making sure we get just the right system, making sure it has our specifications and all that. You know, we have on the table maybe another location. Do we want to add a restaurant, things like that, but that's kind of tabled right now. June 1st, we are going to do the big launch party of this session Braggot. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're still putting together maybe some of the details. Hoping to have Peter and Logan right here helping push it. And then they're going to feature this as a beer kit over there at their shop. I'm really excited to be able to push this out. We'll push, we get a lot of home brewers in here, so we'll push them, hey, you want to go try making this? We've got you covered. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to turn this grain into eggs. We just pulled off some of off the bright tank. I'll be kegging it up here in the next couple days. And what I was getting off of it, the honey flavor, the clover honey really comes out. It really pops really nicely. The gruit flavor with the herbs and spices come through as almost a candied herbal flavor. The 3 elements in that gruit come together really nicely. The lemongrass, the basil, and the birch bark. That kind of just slightly minty, a little bit lemon quality. And it's got a really nice body on it too, for only being about a 4.6% beer. It's going to be really nice throughout the whole summer.
So thanks for watching our video today. Thomas, how do you think this beer turned out?
Man, it's great. Just tasting the wort, I think it's going to ferment out really nice. We hit our target gravity. Going to be 4.5, slightly higher percent. Nice session beer, nice and bright from those herbs. Yeah, had a lot of fun.
Thanks everybody for watching. If you want to check out more New World stylized Old World ales, be sure to check out Bellwether Brewing Company here on Monroe in North Spokane, and we will post a link to all their social medias below so you can look them up.
And also don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, as well as supporting us, which you can always do by going to our Amazon page or coming into the shop.
Cheers everybody.
Cheers.